different name to begin with.
Say again?
I saw that you started with a different name.
Yes, man from Turkey.
I did notice. So, hi everybody, it's 6:30, so I think we can get started. I'd like to call to order the Norton School Committee meeting for Thursday, September 3rd. So, welcome everybody. So I think that we have a really small agenda tonight, and I will turn it over to you, Dr. Baeta, to start the discussion on the Norton Teachers Association Memorandum of Understanding.
Thank you, Madam Chair, very much. Good evening to all and all of our attendees here this evening. The process, as you know, has been quite lengthy, starting with the understanding of our labor management committee consisting of 5 Norton teacher and paraprofessional educators and 3 administrators. From there, the representation of the school committee and executive board, and then from there, the membership, and then the full school committee for a vote. So what's before you this evening was passed with a 99% pass rate for those who participated by the Teachers Association, and which includes paraprofessionals. As part of this agreement, I'll go through the core of the topics. There's really 2 succinct handouts. One is the actual memorandum, which goes through 42 different items and subsets within those items, and then 5 pages worth of expectations, which are grounded to different positions within the association, i.e. classroom teacher versus school psychologist versus occupational therapist, and so on. Probably the 6 or 7 things that I'll mention that are core to the everyday operations of the school and the district is, number 1, that the 2 sides agreed to continue to discuss what full remote would look like if in fact we went to district-wide full remote, and that's the way that we did this process. So that will continue as soon as in the coming days, if you will, and we'll utilize the same process. Second, the hybrid model that was voted by the school committee, which then led to what's called impact bargaining under Chapter 150E for change in working conditions. That really has 4 or 5 core issues. This is the one area where the 2 sides spent most of our time discussing during the 30 or so hours of going back and forth. And it started with really trying to come to consensus on what we felt would be the best experience, the fairest experience, and we weren't necessarily at the table looking at it from the same perspective. So we had to go through that whole process of give and take, which is part of negotiations, and without getting into specifics so that we don't, if you will, give way to what happens in negotiations. It's truly about a give and take process. The hybrid model, as per the school committee vote and then agreed to tentatively in this agreement, is that Monday is a remote day for all students on a, if you will, early release schedule. And I use that phrase simply because the students would be done according to the early release of their schools, like we would on any professional development day, except that student work is expected to be completed as part of that day in the afternoon, while the teachers are being provided the time to actually create and develop work like they've been doing. Just today, I actually spent some time with teachers in terms of the second part, which is preparing lessons for the home days of the hybrid model. What would that look like? That would look like videos of expectations, objectives, and clear work that must be completed as part of that day. May or may not be graded. Grading is part of the traditional way that we graded prior to the spring. So this is literally number grades and letter grades and standards-based report card in pre-K 5. And then from there, we added a 30-minute extension to the school day per teacher for students to check in with teachers twice a week. We have 30 hours within the contract, and what we did is we basically, at least for the start of the year, have given up some of those hours. Instead of having just faculty meetings, we thought it would be best to have the staff available pre-K through 12 for students specifically not only for the remote days, but also could be utilized as part of the days that the student in school. An opportunity for students to check in. Predominantly done at the secondary level, as we know, in terms of kids stay after school to go see their teacher because they missed something in chemistry or they need some help in rewriting an essay or whatever the case may be. But we've opened it up district-wide for our students. So this will be something that with the students that are home, we really have to count on our families to understand how that's going to work, and also putting demands on our teachers of how it's a two-way process. It's not an office hour that's just open. It needs to be more concrete than just saying it's office hours, because as we know, if you give teenagers choices to attend something, more than likely they're not going to attend. The next part that we spent some time on was trying to figure out the best way to provide supports for our teachers when they're not in the classroom and they're actually home, either ill themselves from COVID or taking care of a loved one, i.e. their own child or children, or in many cases as well, elderly parents. That's a topic that's very, very close and dear to our staff, because many of our staff have elderly parents that they are responsible for, and also young children. So we went through a process, and then when we got to the difficult discussions, it was really around the topic of what do we do with people that are not full-time employees. So we created our own COVID-19 sick bank as part of that response. I can tell you that it's positive for us in many ways, one of which is right now, as the person in charge of finding academic teachers for the remote learning days, I'm having a really difficult time. Every person that we call in, by the time the interview gets started, they've already accepted a job in another place. All of us are looking for remote educators or for FMLA leave teachers in the classroom. And every day has been a hiring day for us as part of that. The expectations sheet is 5 pages long, as I said, very definitive of what our expectations are. For work, for grading, for checking in, for delivering direct services. That is part of the agreement. Evaluations, we continue to provide evaluations with 2 different models to be finalized. One for teachers who do not yet have professional status, which is to be much more, if you will, traditional, for lack of a better phrase. And the second to be with our professional status teachers, which is more around professional development and prioritizing and becoming proficient in 3 key areas that we're going to be putting on the table. One of which is the social emotional development of students. The second is reaching all students academically where they are and how to move them along, i.e. Student on an IEP, a 504, an ELL, or a student who needs to academically achieve at another level by differentiating instruction for that student. And then the last and probably as important is getting teachers to proficiency or exemplary in the utilization of instructional technology within the classroom. That is a core area that we figured out in the spring was still missing with some of our staff. And we want to make it a positive experience and set up teachers for success, and paraprofessionals and administrators like myself who are not proficient or exemplary in technology, like, for example, 2 folks I can think of, Karen and Jen, to go to another level. And this is an opportunity to put together a plan of attack to get that actually done so that we become better and not just say that we're thinking we're becoming better. The next one I mentioned earlier is grading. That was not a whole lot of deliberation, to be quite honest. The 2 sides agreed that we needed to take a look at grading in the more traditional sense. But at the same time, we also had a lot of discussions about expectations around what type of things should we be grading. So a lot of discussion around project-based learning, a lot of discussion around students preparing and providing, if you will. We had discussions about the idea of curriculum instruction around the flip, which is kind of flipping the instruction, if you will, where students are providing it to themselves and coming into the classroom with a understanding of what's going on, but then bring it into a whole nother level as not only a classroom experience, but the individual experience. And then a lot of time on safety protocols. So let's talk about that real quick. This has probably been the #1 issue statewide, coming from the Mass Teachers Association, the American Federation of Teachers, and the Boston Teachers Union, as part of the plan to make sure that our buildings were at a status that was positive. And we feel very comfortable with that. I want to announce tonight that between all of the PPEs, all of the building issues that we've been doing, all of the technology that we've ordered, all of those individual things that we think are going to make us safer and better, we're at approximately $1.3 million worth of expenditure for those things. So that would be the $187,000 grant, the $700,000 or so coming from the town for PPEs that they were supported in technology early on, which, by the way, as Karen actually came on tonight, because I was telling her not to, our Chromebooks are in as of today. It's got to be one of the first districts to get our Chromebooks. So that's really, really cool for us, because we're going to be able to get them out through Karen's work and her department's work prior to the students coming to school. And then everything to do with the $225 Grant 102, I think it's called, from the state, $519,000 that we're putting towards our remote learning platforms, and so on and so forth, and the teachers that we've had to hire and support staff in order to do this right. That's a lot of money. We did air quality checks. We did air handler tests, and we're going to do the air quality tests again. And we got our certification about our HVAC systems and our preventative maintenance plan. So we feel really comfortable and good about all of those things. And we're one of the first districts to sign an MOA if this is successful tonight in the area as well. And I think in many ways a model going forward. Those are the key points, if you will, around teaching and learning. I do want to thank a couple of folks before you have questions or take a vote of the public, and that is that this was truly a back and forth, and this is not easy. This document is an ever-changing document. I think I can say that both the NTA and myself on your behalf feel that any type of an impact bargaining MOA, MOU requires us to take a look at things. And today was a perfect example of that. We have things about windows being opened and relevant humidity. Well, just take a look at what the weather was outside today, and windows open. It caused humidity within our own buildings, even though the air exchange handling and the air quality was fine, it still caused all of those things. And those are issues that we have to bring back to the table and say, well, there might be some days where we're keeping the windows closed and making sure that our air handlers are exchanging the way they are, which they are, and we have that verified, that in fact, it's better to do it differently than just have windows open, which, by the way, is going to be an issue in November, December, and January anyways. A lot of work's gone into this. I'm pleased with that effort. It's not perfect for either side, but it's a good starting point as we move towards hopefully having a hybrid school year and hopefully returning back to school instead of having to just do remote.
Well, thanks for the update. I think I've been really fortunate to be kind of an observer of this process. Dr. Bayetta has, and you've been really helpful keeping me up to date as the chairperson of the committee. I think I have sort of heard information about the process, about sort of some of the conversations that were happening. So I just want to thank you on behalf of the school committee for really being a strong advocate for the students in Norton. I also want to thank, of course, the Norton Teachers Association, Shannon Taylor, and more specifically, who's really sort of spearheaded this on behalf as well of the students in Norton, to really come up with a plan that I think could be workable for both sides. I think, you know, you and I, Dr. Bayette, have had multiple conversations about kind of the work that we do collaboratively. This is a team effort, and we recognize that contracts are about sort of the give and take. So we really, I think, came to a good kind of place, knowing that we will continue to sort of evaluate and sort of really kind of take a look at how this process goes, that just because we have a plan in place doesn't mean that we're not going to continually sort of reevaluate or evaluate and then sort of maybe come up with things that will just strengthen kind of the work that we're doing. So thank you. I'm not sure if anybody else on the committee has any questions or looking for any clarification at all.
I don't have a question, but I would like to just reiterate something you said. I want to personally thank the Norton Teachers Association, and particularly Shannon Taylor for her leadership as well. This was overwhelmingly passed, and I think in today's environment, you're seeing a lot of towns where there is a fracture between the school committee, the administration, and the teachers unions, and I think it's a real credit to the NTA and to Shannon Taylor that this was so overwhelmingly passed. It shows a real desire on their part to kind of get back to what they do best, and that's teaching our kids. So I do want to reach out to those guys and say thank you very much for that. It's greatly appreciated by all of us.
Thanks. I think that we all can concur. I mean, I think that that is something, if we turn on the news, right, we know there's a lot of districts that are really having a difficult time coming to sort of a consensus. So I do think that that is something that sort of at your kind of leadership, Dr. Bayetta, you really put a team together that I think we all really respect each other. We know we don't always agree. But we absolutely are willing to hear each other's perspectives and point of view and really kind of work with that. So thank you to all that was involved with this, because I'm not sure, I think you said something like 30, how many hours? Did you say 35 hours?
Well, if we go back, we actually had 3 weeks where we only met for a short period of time, but we've been meeting since Monday, March 16th. Every Monday, and then
I was wondering if it's actually more than that. I mean, I think that this has certainly, for all that have been really at the table diligently doing this, it's been sort of another full-time job. So
it really has, and I have to say that administrators that were at the table were handling as many different things as they could, but those educators that were at the table were doing it on their own time. You know, they're not getting a stipend from anybody. Nobody's paying their, you know, their nothing. They did it as part of being leaders of the association, and then the executive board voting it, and then the membership ratifying it. So I would highly recommend that the school committee adopt this document, and that we continue working. We're right back to work on Tuesday next week on this document and others that we have to continue to work. And I have total faith that we'll continue to move forward.
Great, thank you. So is there any other questions or comments from the school committee? Nope, seeing none.
We just have just a thank you from, I'll just read them, just a thank you from to myself, and of course I hope the team in the NTA, and then a comment from Ms. Taylor, the NTA president. We are incredibly proud of the work we put in. We agreed to continue to work together throughout this process. Thank you to Wade Lazard as well for all he and his team did to get us the information we needed about our buildings.
And I probably should have Wade giving you a shout out, because I do know too, I didn't specifically mention you, but I do know all of the work that you and your staff have really put into this. So thank you, because I can imagine for you as well, this has been more than a full-time job, getting all that information. So very much appreciated. Seeing no other questions or comments from the school committee, I'd like to open it up to see if there's anybody who's in attendance that has any questions or comments. If you could just put those into the Q&A, or and we'd be happy to sort of answer those.
There's none at this time, Madam Chair, and just for the public to know, once the vote, the document's a public document, so we will actually put it on our website, because that'll be easier for parents to have questions about it and all that, just as an opportunity to share with everybody.
Perfect, and I am still seeing none, so we can move to the vote. So is there a motion to approve the Norton Teachers Association Memorandum of Understanding as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thanks. All in favor? Sherry?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Dinesh?
Yes.
Carolyn is a yes, and I think Kathleen is not present.
That's correct. So 4-0. Thank you so much. Congratulations to the Norton Public Schools for moving us forward, and thank you again to all involved.
Thanks so much. And then Dr. Bayetta, I think you were just going to do a quick update on the opening of schools.
Yeah, just a quick update. We had some really good days. I get to spend some quality time with teachers and catching up. Never harder than talking in masks, by the way. It's just so frustrating. But you know, the work is being done. They're meeting. They're collecting their data. They're exchanging ideas. They're going through the trainings. I started this morning with our COVID-19 response draft, which allows for them through middle of next week to provide us with further ideas that they may have, which are coming forward, by the way. Thanks to the work of the technology department, Karen and her crew for really putting together a plan. We published some different dates for the upcoming weeks because the Chromebooks are in. So instead of giving out old Chromebooks, we get to give out and then collect them and give out new. I don't know what magic she worked, but these things weren't coming until October, November, December. So they're here before the first day of school. Really excited about our kids getting them, and I know they will be. The remote-only parent choice, again, this is the remote-only parent choice, approximately 318 students, give or take, in pre-K through 12 plus. Thank you to Marty Gagan, who has volunteered to be the virtual principal pre-K to 12 as of today. So he's going to undertake some of that along with me. And I know Jen and Karen and everybody else that's involved is going to be involved at some point with us. I'm looking at Vinny and Casey as well because of everything to do with student services. And then I do have, I'm in the process of hiring that 6th nurse. And just to let you know, that is something that I will go through that process, but I will need you to vote on it. Believe it or not, it's one of the only positions that's left is that the school committee has to accept or reject the hiring of the nurse by the superintendent. So I'll make sure that we get that done sooner than later. I do have a candidate of choice that I've offered the job to, and I'll be sending the credentials forward as soon as she accepts the job. Always a lot of concern about moving in a job right now in this economy. So she's taken the weekend to look at that. And then lastly, I have called for a virtual town hall parent meeting for next Wednesday, the 9th at 6:30 p.m. to provide the most updated information that we have before the week that we start and to take Q&As about what the school year may look like as it is going to be a different school year.
That's great.
That's all I got.
That's great. Any other comments or questions about any of that? I think I just want to share that we are going to be meeting. So Wheaton College has a community council, and it is going to be a meeting, I think in October. I'm not sure of the date, but I think it really does demonstrate that sort of even as a town, working sort of with our town partners, we're all kind of sitting at the same table having conversations to help support one another in this sort of current time. So I just want to make sure everybody is aware that, you know, Wheaton continues to be a really strong asset to Norton Public Schools and the town in general, but that we will be meeting with them in October to sort of start those community meetings again. So just wanted to share that. Is there any other topics, Dr. Baeta?
Wish everybody a fantastic Labor Day weekend, and that everybody social distance and wear masks so we can be nice and healthy next week and for at least the next 21 days.
You got it. So seeing no additional comments, I don't see any comments by the school committee, no comments in the kind of Q&A box by our attendees. I would like a motion to call this meeting, or I don't even think I called the meeting to order, did I?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, I did, okay.
Yeah.
To conclude this meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
It's been a long week. So let's see, Sherry,
Yes.
Dinesh,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
and Carolyn is a yes, and Kathleen is absent. So
Have a
thanks,
great week, everybody.
A lot of
Thank
hard
you so
work.
much.
Really appreciate it.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.